California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. Hello everybody, I'm Huell, and you know, usually there is a pattern to the way we develop a story. We start off by saying where we are, and then we meet the person we're going to be spending time with and kind of tell a little bit about what the story is all about. But on this particular story, on this adventure, we're not doing any of that. We're breaking all the rules and starting off with a bang. Hit it, Joe! Joe, I think we've got our viewers tuned in.
I think so.
Wondering what in the world is going on?
Well, a lot of everything.
Can you imagine if somebody was listening to this on the TV from another room? They've all run in now to see what's going on. The dogs are howling. The cats are scurrying under the couches. Explain to everybody. Well, now let's get back to the pattern of the way we develop a story. First, we're in Montrose, right? Your name is?
Joe Rinaudo.
Joe, and tell everybody, stand up here for a minute. Tell us what it is we are looking at, what we have just heard, because I have never seen anything like this before, and I have never heard anything like this before.
That's a sad testimony to these machines. This infernal contraption is called an American photoplayer.
A what?
A photoplayer.
Photoplayer.
And originally, the company that built this was in Oakland, California. The Van Valkenburg brothers invented contraptions like this about 1910.
And what was it for?
It was to narrate photoplays, spelled P-H-O-T-O, photoplays, which were motion pictures. So this machine actually sat down in the orchestra pit in front of the screen in the very early silent movie theaters, and it took the place of an orchestra. It was economical to buy. You pay about $3,500 for a machine like this in 1912, let's say. And in a year, it paid for itself.
Now, would it go along with the silent movies, or was this entertainment before and after the feature film?
Yes, to both questions. It was a program piece where you could do intermission pieces, which was something like the 12th Street Rag, which you just heard. You'd never do that during a movie, of course, unless it was like the Ben-Hur chariot race or something. But it also was used to narrate silent films, and that's why you have both. You have two spool boxes. One roll is playing while one is rewinding, so you can cue up the next scene.
Let's put another. Let's
do something fun. These are called picture rolls.
Yeah, because that last thing you didn't have enough energy to it.
No, of course not. We need something with a little more energy. Well, here's one called a drunk soused spree. So if you had, let's say, just for the sake of argument, if you had a scene in a film where you had, let's say, a guy was drinking and he was drunk and he was walking down the street drunk. Well, the operator would have to know the film. You'd watch the film the night before the show.
Would movies, when they sent out the movies, suggest certain roles that would go with that particular movie?
Usually not. In some cases, feature productions would send out sheet music, and that would give the operator a cue or an orchestra leader a cue.
Yeah.
However, these were usually relegated to comedies and for the shorter and smaller films.
This is a one-man orchestra.
This is a one-man.
Look at all this over here.
Yeah,
You've got drums.
You have horn, chime, locomotive. You can do. Train across the tracks. You got wind, crash cymbal, bass drum, tom-tom, gunshot. You got triangle. How about a klaxon horn? Two automobiles coming at each other. And then you have a doorbell, cowbell,
This is a workout to
It is a
just
workout.
do this.
It's an aerobic workout of 1912.
This is amazing. Can you bench up again and do us
Sure.
another
I'll
one?
give
This is an amazing thing. How long were these around?
Unfortunately, well, actually, fortunately, they were around from about their heyday was about 1911 to 1926. And in 1926, they were absorbed by one of their baby companies, the Robert Morton Theater Organ Company. Fotoplayer went broke basically in 26 because the advent, there were rumors the sound was coming. And the other problem was, they'd saturated the market. They made 4,500 of these things. Only 35 survive today.
And one of them's in your living room.
One of them's here.
How many of them do you think ever were in living rooms? They were too expensive for the average person to buy.
Yes, they would have been too expensive. Although
plus the neighbors must love this when you go to town on a Saturday night.
The only argument I ever get complaint I get from neighbors is that, would you leave your doors open so we could hear it, please?
Yeah, because it must spill out over the whole neighborhood.
It does a little bit.
And so you've got this one. This is perfectly preserved, restored. And how many are left in the whole world?
In the world of this brand, this make, American, I've found about 35 is all worldwide. That's it. Out of 4,500 made, less than 1% survived.
And they were in use primarily from
1911 to 1926.
So it was just over a 15-year period. That was it.
And then they disappeared because it was this big, heavy thing down in front of the screen. It was the first thing to get adiosed when sound came in. And the rolls, they don't sound good on a player piano. They sound very good on an organ because they're cut for piano and organ. But another thing is I'm trying to find all the picture rolls ever made. No complete collections survive. Like the Fotoplayer, we're losing our history right here.
All right, let's hear it.
Right.
I want to get energized again.
Well, it won't be as wild, but the ending will. I'm going to play something here. This is three. The first one is called Drunk Soused Spree. The next one is called Mushy Music.
Mushy music.
Mushy music. The man that's been drinking is going to meet a cute little girl.
Oh, so you can mix the two rolls?
Yes. And the reason you had two spool boxes and they used player piano rolls, a very clever idea the Van Volken brothers had, is that you can free the operator's hands to change the organ stops to fit the screen action, and his hands are free to do all of the sound effects.
I've never seen anybody work as hard as you do on this thing. Really, this is a workout.
It is a workout.
All right, you got the
ball horn. We got a.
All right, let's get you going here.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a quick demonstration of three types of mood music used. The first one, Drunk Soused Spree, mushy music, and then the finale, a villain comes along and steals his love, and the last roll is called A Real Race. R-E-E-L.
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Dry I am.
And this gave the mood. This fit the screen action.
What are you doing with your feet down there?
That's a sustain pedal to give the piano a little more volume.
So you'd have piano pedals?
And yes, you have the pedals loud and soft. You also you can program the organ, turn off the flutes, have a principal and a violin. Now we go to, those are your tubas, which gives a little sillier sound.
Yeah.
Now he meets his cute little girl. Now he's falling in love. Oh my goodness. Now
this is mushy, isn't it?
This is mushy. There's a villain lurking.
So you're going to work the villain into mushy love.
Now the villain grabs her and pulls her into his car. of 3 different types of
What
program music.
is it about this thing that so captivates you? I could stand here and listen to this all day long.
In the catalog for American Fotoplayer, it says the sound of the machine will thrill the adults and it will please the children so. Because it sounds like a merry-go-round. It wants to make you laugh.
Yeah.
And they had fun toys, didn't they?
You're out of breath.
I am. That's a lot of work. Can you imagine doing Ben-Hur? And they did. You know, they had larger. This is one of the smaller machines. They had the largest model was 22 feet long and had 600 pipes.
See, I think this would work today. Not necessarily in a movie theater, but big restaurants, family restaurants could have this with somebody playing up on a stage. This is just fascinating stuff.
We need to get these. Everybody that hears it says the same thing you just did.
Yeah.
Where can I go and hear one of these? You can't. They're all in private hands or unrestored.
And as if it could get any better, when you come to Joe's house, not only do you hear music, but you actually see the old films on, well, this is the most interesting old projector I have ever seen, and this, again, is an original.
It's an original 1912 Powers cameragraph projector.
1912. So these were one of the early projectors.
Very early, yeah, pretty early. They certainly had projectors before that, but these were extremely sophisticated. This model actually came out in 1909 as a Model 6. This is a 6A, which would have been more or less used in a booth.
And this would have been out about the same time that the Fotoplayer would have been out. So
they are contemporaries.
all right, now let's see what we're gonna. You've actually got a movie. What are we gonna be seeing?
This is a film that a friend of mine gave me, George Huell, who's a film historian, and he got it from the Library of Congress. It's a very rare thing from 1902 called Life of an American Fireman.
And this is an Edison film.
This is an Edison film.
And you were telling me about Edison and the way he made some of these early films.
Yes, in many cases, Edison, of course, would do things like send his cameramen and place them by firehouses. And when there'd be an alarm call, they would start cranking and take pictures of the horses, and they'd actually chase the firemen to the fire.
So this is kind of an early documentary in some sorts. It's kind of a mixture of documentary and acting.
That's correct. In fact,
1902.
1902.
And before we start the film, you've got a slide projected up on the wall here, just like they would have done in the movie theaters. And this one says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remove your hats." And in today's terminology, it would also add, "And please cut off your cell phones." So, all right, here we go.
Okay.
Let's get this thing
All right,
cranking.
here we
This
go.
is interesting just to...
Edison cranked, this film is cranked at about 15 frames a second. So with the hand crank, you can obtain about 15 frames right about there.
So the projectionist would have to know how to...
He would match the live
Crank.
action on the screen. He'd try to match the cameraman's cranking speed. And you could do that. You could do
so
that with
you
a
could
crank.
speed it up or you
slow
could
it down.
take it down.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, the fire bell rings and the firemen slide down the pole. Now, these weren't actors. These were real firemen, probably,
Chances
weren't
are
they?
these are real firemen. Edison would have gone to a firehouse in New Jersey and would have asked them to do a dry run for them.
And
for
look
the
at
cameras.
this. This is so wonderful going back in time to see this.
There's a dog just in the scene, and it's just wonderful. Truly a time capsule.
And when these movies appeared in those first movie theaters around the country, just seeing a film of a fire truck with the horses going down in a movie, there they come out of the firehouse, must have just captivated people.
Yeah, people were mesmerized by this magic. Truly, these movies were magic.
Now, can you make those horses go faster or slower? Because that's part of it too, isn't it?
Yes.
The projectionist, if he was tired, the horses wouldn't get to the fire nearly as quickly as if he was just coming on duty,
That's
right?
true. That's true. Or if he had a hot date that night, the last reel might go through the projector awful fast.
I bet you projectionists were known as either being fast or slow or good with...
That's right.
Because each one of these movies, did they have sections where they were supposed to go faster and slower?
If the cameraman, of course, would undercrank, the action would go faster, and he'd overcrank, it would go slower. and the projectionist had to watch for that, depending on the scene, and compensate with his cranking speed. Also, different cameramen were used to make one film, so you had maybe 2 different speeds. It would vary 3 or 4 frames. It made a difference.
And as you're cranking this thing, and I'm looking at the front, this is the...
That's a bow tie shutter.
This is the shutter in the front.
Shutter, which actually stops it hides the motion of the film moving down, advancing 1 frame.
Look at the way this is all engineered. Boy, it's beautiful to watch it.
It's amazing. Mr. Power, Nicholas Power, created this machine in 1909, this movement.
Look at all of these pieces.
Flywheels and gears and cogs, and, you know, Simplex used his intermittent movement. To this day, they still use his movement. It's very sophisticated.
All right, now the firemen have arrived at the burning house.
The burning house.
And was this a real, this wasn't really a burning house?
That would have been staged by the Edison Motion Picture Company.
Uh-oh, there's the burning room.
There it is.
There's got to be a damsel. There she is. She woke up. She's looking out the window. She's overcome by smoke. She's fainted in the bed. Up. But there comes the fireman.
To the rescue.
Now, in the theater, people would have been cheering.
Probably cheering and screaming, thinking that this was real.
Okay, up. He's breaking out the window.
There it goes.
I bet you he's going to pick her up and throw her out the window.
Oh. Well, knowing Edison, maybe so.
No. No, he's carrying her out the window. Oh, wow. See, this is so exciting. And to think of this whole technology going on, that was exciting in itself.
Yes.
Regardless of what was on the screen, just the fact that this thing was cranking.
Cranking, all the independent parts are doing their job and tricking your mind into making still pictures motion.
And would there be music going along with this from your photo player, or from a just single piano player, or what?
It would depend on the theater. If it was a very small house, you'd have maybe just a piano. If it was a very large house, you'd have perhaps a church organ in there or an orchestra. But in the mid-range theaters, you'd have a photo player that were too large for just a piano and too small for a pipe organ, and didn't have the money for an orchestra.
Boy, this is a workout too.
Yes, it is. Imagine doing 8 reels.
The film is interesting, but this collection of slides you have here in this box are so interesting because I mean, of course, there's no way for someone to know what those early movie-going experiences were like except through a person like you who's studied this. Before the film started, they had this series of slides they put up on the screen.
Yes.
Let's look at some of them now, because you've got an amazing collection. This first one says, "If annoyed, when here, please tell the management," which means if there's a masher bothering a young lady in the theater, please tell the management.
And then he would be summarily bounced. Next slide.
"Madam, how would you like to sit behind the hat you are wearing?" So I guess back then, big hats were a problem.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Women had these big, flowery, feathered hats. Ostrich plumes, and they wouldn't think twice about sitting down and just destroying someone's view.
Oh, this is my favorite. "This theater is scrubbed out." Scrubbed out.
Scrubbed out.
3 times a week. Remember, there are ladies present. You would not spit on the floor at home. Please don't do it here. They really cut right to the message, didn't they?
They did.
They didn't mince words.
No, because they meant business. This was their livelihood. And, you know, people, this is all they had to do. This was entertainment. You know, radio, there was no television, radio, or anything. So people came out, and the theater had to be clean and have a good reputation, or they wouldn't come.
No spitting on the floor.
No spitting on the floor.
All right, next slide. Well, there was a theater etiquette people had to learn.
That's correct. That's correct.
"Everyone has taken their hat off but you," and it's pointing right at somebody.
At someone. Yes, yes.
So what was this all about?
Well, this particular slide would have been what they call a shaming slide. And they would stop the show, the projectionists would stop the film. They'd throw the slide onto the screen and maybe bring the house lights up, and then
You're kidding.
no, the individual, the offending individual, would usually be rousted quite well by the patrons who wanted the film to continue. So of course when the lights came up, you'd see the guy with the hat on, they'd all start yelling at him, and it was...
So going to a movie back then was... It could be a very...
It could be an emotional experience. It could be a bad emotional experience. But it taught the person, like you said, etiquette.
What are we listening to here?
Well, this is one of Edison's early phonographs. It's a gem cylinder phonograph, and this is the first portable phonograph. It could be taken on picnics in your Model T or in your buggy, and what you're listening to is Come Josephine in My Flying Machine.
Yeah.
Of course, in 1903, when the Wright brothers flew, we had a flying craze in the United States. So this song was written kind of in honor of that.
And this was a portable phonograph.
Edison was pretty practical. He knew that the public would want his invention, and he was trying real hard to find different markets.
Where do you get all of this? And this is your prize right here, isn't it?
This is my pride and joy. This is a 1903 Edison Universal. This was one of the first production. This is the first production model phonograph used built by the Edison laboratories, used for home use and semi-professional. Now here you have carbon arcs. This is a carbon arc. This is like a welding arc. This could blind you and give you radiation burns.
Look at this was for home movies?
This is for home, and they were running nitrate film. This is nitrate film, a matter of a foot and a half away from a live spark. And as you know, if this reel, which is not nitrate, this is safety film, if this ignited, this whole room would go up. It's like napalm.
Now, how many of these are in existence today? This should be in the Smithsonian.
I'm sure there's probably not more than a handful. I would guess 10, 15 of these. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This came from the collection again of George Huell, who's a film historian, and he decided to break up his collection and honored me with this.
You know, you could spend a day in this house. Look, we've got, you know, everywhere you look, you have these wonderful pieces of history.
Yes. You know, music never really left film. It's still in film, of course. And Edison was trying his darndest to match sound to film. He called it the melding of art and science. And he never really could accomplish it. Usually, Edison would have a phonograph playing with his early films.
So everything we've done here today is this melding of sound
with motion.
With motion.
The persistence of vision. Yes. Yes. Fascinating stuff.
From home to office, and what makes your life so interesting, Joe, is that you have figured out a way to combine your passion for old movies, old movie projectors, old movie music, into the way that you make your living.
That's right. My first lamp that I made for my business was a lamp I saw in a Laurel and Hardy film.
And here's the picture.
That's the actual photograph going by.
There's the lamp up on the wall. And that caught your interest.
Caught my interest as a young kid, seeing these on early television, and I love Laurel and Hardy, and I thought this is just coolest stuff, and I reproduced a gas-electric combination fixture, and I named it the Laurel, named after Stan Laurel.
And this is the lamp that was on the wall.
Yes.
Your whole workshop is like going back in time, and over here are more of these old projectors.
Yep.
Where do you find these things? In old barns?
Well, junk stores, collectors have them, old projectionists have them in their garages. They make quite a few of them. And I find them in this condition. They're usually frozen and seized up. I take them all apart. There's probably a couple hundred working parts. Clean them, file them, redo the bearings, whatever has to be done.
And make them into a finished projector that works?
Working projector that's safe on film.
Look at this thing.
That's a 6. That's my next project. That's a 1909 Model 6 breadboard. Called a breadboard because the wooden board that everything was was mounted on was like a breadboard.
People have never seen this before.
No, and we have to get more people exposed to this. This stuff has to remain alive or it's going to disappear.
Wow, well, you are doing your part. Boy, this has been absolutely wonderful. I'm not sure what I expected. But once you started playing that, what's it called again?
A Fotoplayer.
The Fotoplayer, I knew that we were going to have a good time. We've all heard some good music. We have learned a lot of film history. And we have literally met a man who is living his bliss. You figured out a way to put it all, combine it all. Your passion, your love, your work, your hobby, your life.
You know, at one time, Huell, in California and through the nation, this stuff was all commonplace. Photoplayers, projectors, and even the silent film itself and the music was all very commonplace, but people, like we do today, they took it for granted. And because of that, it got cast aside. And now we're losing it at an alarming rate. Out of the 35 photoplayers that survive, only 12 play. And you know how much silent film we've lost and how many projectors. The equipment is all disappearing. So I think we as a nation have to do something to preserve this stuff and see that the next generation will have it.
It's important.
It's very important and forgotten.
Boy, did we have fun! And if you'd like to go on this adventure again, share it with family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library. It's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.